the judiciary registering more than 100 cases in court by the close of business. 15 cases challenging the election of governors have been filed, with 54 seeking to overturn the election of members of parliament. That's another topic we'll be discussing in the course of this broadcast. And finally, are you an owner of a small or medium enterprise business facing challenges doing business in this political year? What has been your experience? Talk to us on 22422 or reach us on Facebook and Twitter as we discuss the challenges and opportunities of doing business in a political year. This will be taking place during the third hour of this broadcast. Well, we're also live in different locations across the country, keeping our correspondents, of course, are letting us know what will be happening in those different locations. We are live in Nyeri County. We're also live in Kisumu and I believe Mombasa as well. We'll be crossing over to each of those correspondents when we get a chance. Let's first begin in Nyeri, where Martin Munene is on standby to tell us the latest in terms of politics and, of course, how Nyeri residents are following what is happening around the country, even as we count down to the upcoming polls. Martin, good morning. What's the latest from Nyeri?
Good morning, Wahiga Maura. And Nyeri is okay, and today we are witnessing the swearing in of the members of the County Assembly, and you're getting us live from the Nyeri County Assembly chambers, where 30 elected members of the County Assembly are going to be sworn in shortly, and also we're going to see 14 nominated members of the County Assembly also being sworn in. There was an earlier court order that had stopped the swearing in of the nominated members of the County Assembly, but yesterday they moved to court and obtained an order that allowed them to be sworn in today, which will be happening shortly. And then, of course, afterwards they are going to be electing a speaker and a deputy speaker in a race that has attracted 10 people who've shown interest in the race. And out of the 10, interesting to note that there is not a single lady who has shown interest in this particular seat. And of course, we had talked with some of the members of the County Assembly, and they're showing a lot of excitement, saying that they're eager to be sworn in and officially start working, especially now that we're going to have a repeat presidential election. They're saying that they're in need of being sworn in officially so that they can officially start working. So we'll be following this. We're going to be keeping you up to date with what is happening here, and the campaigns as soon as they start, we will also be making you aware of that, Wahiga Maura.
Thank you so much, Martin, for that update, reporting from Nyeri County. Hopefully we'll come back to you when you can update us on who will be the speaker and deputy speaker in that particular county assembly. Let's now cross over to Mombasa County to join Biki Dusa. I believe she'll be updating us on petitions there. Of course, you know that the deadline was yesterday, but in case of any late petitions, let's get an update from her now. If you can hear me.
Very good morning to you, Wahiga. I'm coming to you live from Mombasa. Well, yesterday was a very busy day. Yesterday afternoon was a busy day at the Mombasa High Court. Several Mombasa politicians have filed their petition, those who lost in the August 8th election, contesting the results which were announced by the IEBC. Among those politicians are Rashid Bezimba, who is the former Kisauni MP. He was defeated by Ali Mbogo with over 34,000 votes. Bezimba got 29,000 votes, over 29 votes. Another politician who also filed their petition yesterday in the afternoon is former Likoni MP Masood Mohima, who is contesting against the win of Mishimboko, who was the former women rep of Mombasa. Actually, Mishimboko won in 8th August election. And another politician who also filed his petition is the Abdi Daib, who was contesting for Changamwe parliamentary seat in the 8th August election. Abdi Daib is contesting the win of Omar Munyi, who is the current Changamwe MP. They are saying that the elections were not conducted in a free and fair manner. They say that there are a lot of irregularities in the election, and so far nobody has filed a petition against the governorship or contesting the governorship of Hassan Ali Joho. But we'll be waiting to see if today maybe there'll be any politician who will be contesting. Remember, earlier this week, Suleiman Shahbal, who was contesting for governorship of Mombasa, had said that they are consulting and they will be, and to see if they will be filing a petition. Also, Hassan Omar, who is the former Mombasa senator, had also said he is consulting with his team, and they will also be filing a petition against Asanjo. But that is all to be seen, and we'll be waiting and keeping an eye on all of that. Over to you, Wahiga.
Thank you, Biki Dusa, for that update from Mombasa County. Just letting us know the flurry of activity outside the Mombasa Law Court or High Court yesterday, as election losers went to court to petition the court to nullify the declaration by the IEBC in particular areas, and hopefully to carry out those elections again should their wishes be heard. Let's get the same update from Kisumu County now, where we join Laura Cheng. Just let us know also what was happening there in regards to election losers who moved to court to challenge those who are declared as winners in different locations within that county. Laura, good morning. What can you tell us about what must have been a very busy period yesterday in Kisumu as well?
Yes, thank you very much and a very good morning. And here in Kisumu County, as of yesterday, you know that yesterday was the deadline for filing election petitions, and we saw Nguma walk into the High Court shortly after 7 p.m. to file his petitions. Of course, he walked in with one of his lead lawyers, Richard Onsongo, to file his petition. We also know that Grace Akumu, who was one of the aspirants for the woman representative seat here in Kisumu, also filed a petition against Rosa Buyu, who also was declared winner and was the ODM candidate. And so far, those are the only two petitions we know of. And also there are a number of members of County Assembly, about 3 or 4 of them, who have also filed petitions seeking to citing malpractices in the elections and being rigged out. And we know that we got to speak to Governor Jack Ranguma, who said he was very enthusiastic of his win. Of course, he had filed against Anyang' Nyong'o, he had filed against IEBC, and also filed against the Kisumu County Returning Officer John Cox. And away from that, Wahiga, here in Kisumu County yesterday was quite an event after Onyango Law was declared the Speaker of the County Assembly here in Kisumu. We saw him move around town a little bit to just address people. He was in the company of Deputy Governor Matthews Owili, and away from that also we will be moving around different places in town to talk to people, their views concerning election preparedness, what they think. You know, NASA has already contested the October 17th date that has been slated for election, so of course we will be talking to them to hear their views and hear what they have to say on that. Wahiga, that is what is going down here in Kisumu County. The petitions were filed yesterday, the powerful ones, the woman representative seat and the governors. Of course, we will be following up to see how that unfolds. Wahiga.
Indeed, Laura, thank you so much for that update and just letting us know who filed petitions yesterday, and of course the activities in the county assembly as well. We also want to let you know that we're following up with lots of activities that are happening as we speak right now within Nairobi County. We know that Nairobi NASA elected leaders are meeting to discuss various issues. NASA co-principal Musalia Mudavadi, former Governor Evans Kidero expected to be there. As soon as we have that update, we will bring it to you. We also know that Mandera leaders, present and former, are also meeting, and we'll be giving you those updates as and when we get them. But of course, today we're talking matters IEBC. Obviously, if you've had a chance to look at the newspapers, you know that that is the big talking point on the front pages of each paper. And we're asking you, for those of you who are watching, to talk to us on 22422, because we want to know from you whether you're confident that the IEBC can weather the storms. I don't want to say storm, I want to say storms, because there are storms within the IEBC and of course pressure from players outside the IEBC, and deliver a credible election next month. Do you believe that they can do that? Talk to us, 22422, and on our social media platforms as well, at Citizen TV Kenya. And to help us discuss some of these issues, let me introduce my guest in studio. From the far right, we have Irungu Kangata, Senator, Murang'a County, Deputy Majority Whip as well. Welcome to the broadcast, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you.
In addition, Lilian Mahirizaja, pleasure to have you here, former Vice Chairperson, IEBC. Welcome to the broadcast as well. And Chris Wamalwa, Member of Parliament, Kiminini, welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
Indeed, before I engage my guest in studio, let's take a look at the latest in this story done by Sam Gituku about the IEBC and the challenges affecting that particular institution. Have a look.
A day after the Electoral Commission appeared to buckle under NASA pressure and sidelined 6 senior managers for next month's presidential poll, Jubilee also made its own demands. In an apparent tit-for-tat move, Jubilee Party wrote to IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati demanding 9 officials it accuses of sympathies to NASA step aside. The list, comprising of IEBC Deputy CEO Marjan Hussain, whom Chebukati picked to head his 6-member coordination team, Salome Oyugi, the manager legal services of favoritism, the director in charge of research Decima Maye, and Crispin Owie, who is in charge of investigations, at the commission. Others cited are Joseph Ayata, the Human Resource Development Manager, Voter Education Manager Joyce Kwam, and Tabitha Mutemi, who is in charge of corporate affairs. Linus Onyango, who handles election security, and Caroline Manyange, currently in charge of boundaries, are also unwanted by the Jubilee Party.
Of that judgment, Mr. Chair.
But in a quick response, Chebukati has asked both political formations to respect IEBC's independence and invited the President's party for a consultative meeting tomorrow. A meeting planned with NASA to address its other demands, including the rescheduling of voting date, new returning officers, and an audit of ICT infrastructure, failed to materialize. In his response, Chebukati says it is not practicable to grant the demands owing to time constraints. Earlier in the day, it was reported that a section of the commissioners were unhappy with Chebukati's anointed team that sidelined the CEO Ezra Chiloba and 6 others, claiming it was not consultative. Sam Kituko, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Well, shortly we'll be taking an in-depth look at IEBC's response to the Jubilee Party and IEBC's response to the NASA coalition. We'll be doing that in just a bit. But for now, let me give my guests in studio each a chance to weigh in on matters IEBC and the challenges that they are facing. Let me start with you, Senator Kangata. You've watched that story. Obviously, you've been following the matters closely when it comes to IEBC. Your take?
Well, the problem can only be attributed to the NASA coalition. It has been making demands which are illegal, which are not tenable in law. For instance, they started their campaign of pushing the present commissioners to go home. You know very well that is impossible. You have to look at the Constitution. The Constitution says that upon a verdict by the Supreme Court for a fresh election, the President loses some powers, including the power to appoint public officials. So meaning, if you push out those commissioners, you'll have a situation where there will be no one to appoint them into office. So this is just a game by the NASA to ensure we do not have elections come next month, because they are not prepared for those elections.
But your party looks like it's joined the game as well, asking for the removal of some officials. Isn't that the same thing, disrupting a body with such few days to the polls?
No, you cannot say that. First and foremost, we are not pushing for the removal of any commissioner, for obvious reasons, because of those reasons that I have detailed, legal reasons. But
you're pushing for the removal of some staff or the sidelining of some staff, are you not?
Yes, you see, those are what we call things which can be done internally. You don't have to put those issues under the law. And by the way, for us, we are the ones who are on the right track of the law. For instance, here you are sidelining a person called Chiloba. Chiloba is the current CEO. He has not stepped aside. He has not been suspended, meaning he still has to sign some documents. How does he sign for some documents whereas he is not involved in the procurement, for instance, of new ballot papers? So for us, you're on the correct side of the law.
Okay, Lillian, I'm hoping you'll be giving me the non-political points here, because clearly you're in between two politicians who you can see how the debate has already started. But for you, of course, matters IEBC as you look at what is happening. Your take, and specifically, how does Chebukati navigate pressure from within and outside?
Allow me first to say it is the country at crossroads. We are in a historic period. We've never had this kind of a situation before, and we have all to be very, very careful and cautious about how we approach issues. The Commission, you have said, is under siege. But why the Commission? The Commission is an institution that is provided for in the Constitution, that has the mandate to conduct elections. The unfortunate thing is that we politicize everything we do in this country. And when we passed the new constitution, Kenyans were hopeful that we were building strong institutions that are really constitutionally protected. This is not independent, right, of course. But your independence does not mean you cannot hear out Kenyans, because remember, as an institution, they are accountable to the people of Kenya. So we have seen all these things that are playing out since we got the ruling from the Supreme Court. There was quite an indictment on the way IEBC conducted itself. And already we have seen from the decisions they are making, there is no right and wrong. Whether they make a decision this way, one side is happy, another side is unhappy. So they really are at crossroads, and the country is at crossroads. So I'm happy to even see that they're calling both coalitions to discuss the issues, because that is the way to go. We have the law. The IEBC follows the law. It follows the constitution. But where we are in such crisis, then we need political solutions as well. Otherwise, moving forward, we'll be going into a situation where you find we are going into a constitutional crisis and we cannot do anything. So I think the commission has to remain sober at this time. They must listen to everybody, and that whatever decisions they take, and at the end of the day they will not please anybody, but they will be accountable to the people of Kenya and conduct an election that will be acceptable to everybody in an atmosphere that is free and fair.
I'll be coming to you, Honorable Wamalwa, shortly, but for you, Lillian, I want to find out from you, in terms of understanding how an institution like the IEBC works, from a structural perspective, the papers today showing both headlines that there seems to be some sort of infighting within the commission itself. In terms of protocol, who has the most power within the commission? How are decisions made in terms of how the IEBC was set up? Just enlighten us a little bit on that.
The commission is the chairperson and the commissioners. They take decisions and they make policy. They guide the institution in terms of the policy direction. The secretariat is the management side of it. It is the technical arm, and it is headed by the CEO, who now sits in the commission and takes the decisions which he ensures on a day-to-day basis he runs the institution. So there is a clear separation of roles, that the commission remains as an oversight organ, and the secretariat is a technical arm of the decisions and must execute the decisions of the commission.
When, for example, the commission needs to make a decision and they're torn, does the chairperson have veto power, or is it a question of voting and the majority has their say? How ordinarily would it work?
The chairman would also vote.
Okay.
Yes, he would have a vote. So if, in fact, what I would say is that the best scenario is where you have a commission that has a consensus and not divided. And I remember the Isaac Hassan team, we always made decision on the basis of consensus.
Okay.
Only once did we vote in the commission. So I think it's always good when you try resolve issues by way of consensus, because remember, it's a give and take. You have to look at the law, you have to look at the many issues that are happening and make a decision that will not look like, you have to still maintain your independence and your integrity.
That's right.
So as a commission, it is a tightrope sometimes, but you have to make decisions that will not please everyone.
A tightrope indeed. I'll come back to you to understand more about the workings of the IEBC, at least in terms of the law. But Honorable Wamalwa, I can give you a chance. I know you've wanted to weigh in, and Senator Kangata started with a very tough shot your way. Maybe I can give you a chance to respond now.
I think first and foremost, I want to say that this is something of very great importance, that we must debate objectively at putting the interests of this country at heart. And I think Senator Kangata was completely wrong when he said that we've demanded the removal of commissioners. Unless he's not been reading papers, at no any given time has NASA demanded, because we are aware it's outlined in the law, Article 251 of the Constitution. We know very well how to go about the issue of removal of commissioners. We've not demanded that. But ours, we are basing it on the Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court ruling, it looked at the issue of the voting, the entire process of electioneering. And the Chief Justice was very clear that matters of elections is not an event, it's a process. And within that process, we have some subsystems that must be put in place to ensure that the election is going to be free and fair. And IEBC derives its mandate from Article 86 of the Constitution, and the word being used is like shall. They shall ensure whatever method is being used, it has to be simple, issues of accountability and all that. And when you go that article, the last part of it, it says that IEBC shall also put mechanisms in place, structures in place, to eliminate issues of electoral malpractice. And looking at the judgment of Chief Justice, it is very clear that
we don't have the full judgment, but
absolutely an abstract was given. You don't have to look at the entire. It's just like when you've been given a document, you look at the executive summary or you look at an abstract, then you'll get the gist of it. He mentioned very clearly that there were a lot of malpractices. Who must be held responsible? In this case, it is IEBC to be held responsible, because they are mandated to ensure the election is free and fair. But whatever the commission is putting in place, that restructuring, It is one of its mandate that it must put structures, mechanism in place that there are no cases of electoral malpractice. From the judgment...
What is the bare minimum that NASA would need from the IEBC to be comfortable with the upcoming polls?
Now, looking at the judgment, malpractices were done. But we need to know, who are these people who are responsible? Because as we go back for these elections, we don't want these people there. If we're told they were the ones who are responsible, how sure are we? We're not safe. Just like we're going to play a game, and the referee is biased, he has shown the bias. I mean, it should be removed. So in this case, it's the responsibility of the IBC, the commissioners, because the commissioners made it very clear that whoever was responsible for this, they went to an extent of even inviting the DPP. You don't have to, because we have defined functions for every manager or whoever the department is. So if the issue was ICT, the person in charge of ICT must be held responsible. If the issue was, let's say, matters to do with voter verification or whatever it is, we have a responsible person for that docket. And if at all what Chebukati is doing, it is going to heal that, so be it. And again, it is very wrong for us to see Jubilee coming to demand, whatever the demands are demanding, and saying that this section of certain people that have some sort of bias. You know, at such a time, we need some extraordinary measures. And when we have extraordinary issues, extraordinary measures are very critical. First and foremost, it was very wrong for IBC to have gone ahead to gazette the date of 17. Though that's not a big deal, it can be gazetted. Because we can only allow to go for elections within the time frame of 60 days if those measures, those loopholes that have been identified have been resolved. Yes. So we want to know, in terms of preparedness of IBC, are they prepared for these elections as per this date that has been communicated? And indeed, it is important that the stakeholders should have been called so that you get an appropriate timing that is suitable to all, subject to those loopholes.
Let me allow Senator Kangata to now respond. You've raised some pertinent issues. Go ahead, Senator.
First and foremost, the IBC is not the chairman. This is an institution where decisions should be made in a collegiate. No.
You need to differentiate.
Allow him to finish, then I'll come back to you.
No, decisions need to be made in a collegiate manner. So therefore, the problem with Chebukati, it appears his decision to create what he's calling a project team was not something that was accepted by each and every commissioner. Or rather, if at all there were a disagreement, it was not put to a vote. So therefore, as my colleague here says, it appears it is an illegal decision to the extent not everyone was involved. We have seen in the newspapers where we see some commissioners who are disagreeing with that decision.
With the special projects team.
Yes, indeed. So therefore, it shows that our query is quite valid. Yes, it is true, because we say that Chebukati has appointed a team unilaterally, and again is a team that is comprised of some people who are suspicious, and for a good reason. We are yet to see the full judgment, and therefore we do not know the real problems of that. So far we do not know the real reasons or the people we can attribute the problem of IBC to. But based on the submissions that were done...
So far you do not know who you can attribute the challenges of the IEBC to. So what about the names that you gave out yesterday?
Yes, you see, the reason why we are...
Are those not the individuals that you feel you're worried about?
No, the reason why we gave out those names, it was based on the submissions that were made, not by us, by the NASA lawyers in court. For instance, they gave evidence showing that one of the problematic stations was, I think, in Mombasa.
Okay.
So the question is, who was the returning officer of that polling center in Mombasa or that constituency? That person who was in charge of that exercise in Mombasa, based on submissions done by NASA lawyers in court, is that person who is now purportedly being appointed to go and be part of the so-called project team in Nairobi. Number two,
you would have a problem with that individual, for example.
Of course. Number two, who was the person who was in charge? Who was the person who was in charge of Tallying Center in Nairobi, in Bomas, Kenya? That person appears now to have been appointed to be part and parcel of this so-called project team. So therefore,
in hindsight, then you should have supported NASA's petition at the Supreme Court. Some would say
exactly.
No. You see, the point is, we couldn't support NASA petition for obvious reasons.
Yes.
And those reasons go beyond those points.
Okay.
Of course, they go beyond those points. But our point was, if at all the court appears to have upheld NASA's arguments there were a problem in Mombasa, and then surely the person who was in charge of Mombasa exercise cannot be part and parcel of the so-called project team.
Thank you, Senator. I'll be coming back to you shortly. I see Joy Mdivo is in studio. Hopefully she'll be joining me on set shortly. Lillian, I'm coming to you. Do we have those graphics ready now? We want to take a look at how the IEBC responded to the demands by Jubilee and demands by NASA. If we can run them one by one, take a look at them, because I want to engage my panelists in studio if that is possible. Can we run the first one now? And then we'll carry on. In addition, thank you so much to everyone who's writing to us on 22422. Okay, there's the first one there. IBC's response to Jubilee, and it goes as follows. Please note that the Commission is an independent constitutional body which, as per Article 249 of the Constitution, shall not be subject to direction or control by any person or authority. It is therefore unacceptable for you to provide a list of staff that you direct us not to consider for the project team. Senator Kangata, I can give you 30 seconds just to respond to this. Has your party sat down and written a counter response, or are they going to leave it at that?
So far not yet, but we intend to do a further reply to that letter, because surely we are stakeholders to this election, meaning we are entitled to give information, to obtain information. Article 35 of the Constitution is quite clear that every public institution has a constitutional duty to disclose information, and one information that the Commission ought to provide to us is on what basis they appoint that team. And number two, the members of that team, are they beyond reproach? Are they people who have been known to have done bad things before? Are they partisan? Those are the issues that we wanted to point out to the IEBC.
Okay. And Lillian, I can also give you a chance to weigh in on this. It seems both sides have their list of people that they don't want to work, whether we're talking about in the Secretariat. Of course, for the Commission, it's a different matter to remove them. It's a process that would have to happen maybe after the new government is constituted. But how does IEBC, again, balance between one side wants these members out, this other side wants these other members out? Is there a middle ground? Is there a way to find a win-win for both sides?
I think at this point, okay, we still do not have the full judgment, full ruling rather, of the Supreme Court. What would have been proper was to have had the IEBC to have been given enough time to do its own internal evaluation and see where the challenges were and exactly who was responsible. But right now we are chasing time. Our 60 days are running. So we do not have time for all those niceties, and I think this is where now IEBC had to come in and just make decisions based on, I think, how the process has come so far. Okay. So having seen what they've gone through, and this is what I would think has happened, they decided on having a team. And of course, as I said, any decision of the Commission would definitely have two sides to it. One would not please one party and one would please another party. So this is why it's important they come together, bring in the two parties together and discuss and compromise on who should do what and how to proceed on up to the date of the election, the 17th. So it is really, they're finding themselves in really a hard place, a very difficult place, where they have to make a decision based on what these consultations will yield, and probably that might be the way forward.
Could one ask both Jubilee and NASA to temper their expectations in terms of the IEBC to, in a sense, tone down and allow the IEBC adequate time to work through some? Because you can see both sides asking for answers, but even within the IEBC at this time, they're also having their own crisis meetings because they have challenges even within the institution.
Yeah, and this is where now their independence comes in. If they are to be seen to be independent, then they have to be insulated against all these politics, because the politics will not end. You know, the game will it will get even murkier. Okay, if they are allowed to move, if they are allowed to go in that direction, it will get murkier. So they have to sit. They will listen to the parties, go back internally, look at their structures. What went wrong? Who was responsible, and why didn't we go this way? Okay. Yeah, so then they have to now make their own internal decisions. Yes. Because remember, the two factions do not work within IEBC. And we expect that the officers in IEBC are independent. And so they should not be seen to be partisan. So if there is any allegation on any official that they are partisan, the law is there. The IEBC Act is very clear. Section 15 is very clear on what happens if an official is found to have engaged in electoral malpractice. They have to take personal responsibility. It's about not just their personal integrity, but the integrity of the process.
Okay. Honorable Amal, I'm coming to you shortly. What I want is, you had written some things as NASA to the IEBC. They responded yesterday as well. Maybe we can take a look at two of them first, and I can come to you and give you a chance to tell us whether these responses were adequate. This was, the responses were signed by IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati. Let's take a look at the first one. That should be coming up on your screen shortly. The second graphic rather. Let's take a look at that now. Coming up on your screen. It starts with, I have taken note of your proposals related to technology, and I will review them as appropriate in context of the assessment. Nevertheless, I also intend to conduct a full audit of the servers guided by previous orders from the Supreme Court. This process will be transparent with international experts and representatives from the Jubilee Party and the NASA coalition. So in terms of the technology around the election, this is how IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati chose to respond to that particular point. Let's take a look at the next one as well, if we can, just so that I can give my guest in studio a chance to look at some of those responses specifically. The next one reads, regarding the register of voters and polling stations, given the short notice that we have before the fresh election, I urge you to review the gazetted polling stations and compare them with the polling stations whose results we have on Forms 34A, and if there are discrepancies, this could be addressed. This will be cured by having GPRS for each KIMS kit deployed. So basically, I believe NASA were posing to the IEBC questions about the technology around the elections, and secondly as well, they were concerned about the location of polling stations and the KIMS kit, whether KIMS kit that was allocated to a particular location was actually used there or was being used in a different location as well. And this was his response, that he doesn't see any issue with that, but if there are discrepancies, feel free to raise it with them. In regards to technology, he suggested, why don't we bring in international experts and representatives from Jubilee and from NASA as well, and see whether we can find a workable solution together. Honorable Amalwa, is this beginning to make sense now for NASA or still not yet?
Yeah, before I respond to that, this is good for my friend Honorable Kangata a bit to understand in terms of governance structures.
You cannot stop politicians. Go ahead, Honorable Amalwa.
Absolutely. He needs to understand in terms of governance. There's always structures in every organization, and there's where the buck stops. You should understand that maybe I can use some simplicity for his easy understanding. The commission, the way it works, I think you gave it to Lillian, but you didn't explain properly for him to understand. I want to give you an example like a school. You know, in a school, you have the principal who...
You want to simplify it as much as possible.
Yeah, so that he can understand, because it seems he has a problem in the understanding.
Please play fair. Play fair.
It's like a school, where at school you have the principal, who is the head. This is, and the teachers. But you have the board, which is up there. So the commission is acting like the board. It's actually a strategic level in terms of decision making. So I want him to get to understand that. And we have the chairman of the board. So this is equivalent to Chebukati, who is the chair of the commission. So
the chair of the board cannot act unilaterally. No, can he act alone? That is the question.
Okay, you know, he's the spokesperson, and he's there to represent the decision of the board. Okay, and in case there's a difference, of course, they can go into voting. So I think with that simplistic approach, now you have understood. Now you can follow. Now, looking at the response of IEBC.
Let's start with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, I want you to understand that the submissions of the lawyers of NASA in the court, they showed clearly that we had some polling centers which are not gazetted. Okay? Yeah, some polling centers, the results were coming in and yet they are not gazetted. So now it brings in the issue of technology, because in terms of that KIMS kit,
and the IEBC chairperson is aware.
He's aware. Those are some of the things we raise, and we raise these issues based on the judgment of the Supreme Court. And by the way, Lillian, I don't think you need to get the entire judgment, because the judgment was given, it was an abstract, and you understand the gritties. This thing is all surrounding the issue of technology.
Transmission, really.
Absolutely.
Transmission.
And that is technology.
Yes.
That's the Kim's kit. In terms of the transmission, we also had cases of the 34S which are not serialized. These are some of the things that are worrying NASA. Suppose we go to the elections.
Yes.
Just a minute, let me finish.
Okay.
We go to the elections and we're going to have the 34S or whatever 34B. They're not getting serialized. You know, even your ID, it has a serial number. This is to bring issues of accountability. And these are genuine concerns that we raise. And before we go for these elections, we want to know what mechanisms has the IEBC put in place to remove those loopholes. And based on that judgment, remember the Chief Justice said they must strict adherence to the law. It must be followed to the letter to eliminate these issues of malpractice. And as outlined in Article 86 of the Constitution, it is very clear that IEBC shall, the word used is shall put measures in place to eliminate electoral malpractice. This is our concern. So, it was written to them. We need to know, have the measures been put in place to remove this?
In part of his response, he states that where there may be issues, it could be because of confusion over the naming of a particular location. Does that make sense for you? For example, in a polling station which has maybe 2 names, even where we are right now, this location could have 2 names depending on, we do not have a synchronized naming pattern around the country. And sometimes that is why if you use Google Maps, for example, you might have a different name for the same place.
Absolutely. What I want to say is this. This is a very important exercise that you cannot come and say that we might have confusion of the names. In terms of preparedness, they had all the time. Remember, as per the earlier agreement, you were supposed to have done this audit. You have gone through, they gave KPMG. KPMG is the one which, and we raised this issue. That how do you bring KPMG to do the audit and yet it is only known in financial audits. It's not known in the issues of matters of voter registration. So this blame, as it takes the process. KPMG was given the work to do the audits. As you audit the voters, it's obvious that it's mutually inclusive to also the polling centers. So the work that was done by KPMG, it was a shady job, and we raised the matter. Jubilee, as usual, they dismissed that. We let it go. But now, as we are going for this particular kit of elections, and by the way, I want to say this
briefly, because I need to bring Ibrahim Divo into this.
This is a fresh election. It's not supposed to be Uhuru and Raila Odinga alone. No. We are supposed to have other players like Okuro Kot.
He's responded to that in that same letter, and I'll come to that.
He based it on the 2013
Yes,
ruling,
he did.
which should not be the case, because the entire elections for presidency were nullified. It was null and void. So there's no absolute, presidential. So Okuro Kot should be allowed to come and contest.
Well, he's going to seek clarification on that, so we will wait for the response.
But in terms of interpretation, we don't have to waste this time, my brother. So the issues that NASA has raised, that are of genuine concern, and the ball is there for IEBC to come and assure. I want to salute them. I want to salute them for bringing the NASA on board and bringing the Jubilee on board. Because at such a time, we need inclusiveness so that we can be able to negotiate and come up to agreeable terms on the way forward.
Joy, welcome to the program. You have found a very heated discussion going on. I want to allow you to also to comment on IEBC and of course the pressure that they face both internally and externally as well. Go ahead.
One of the things that I'm grateful for is that we're having this discussion because it helps us to grow our institutions. I like how Chairman Chebukati has given direction. He's taken control and just given direction, regardless of the criticism that is coming his way. At least for once we're seeing somebody taking charge. I am not very convinced that the argument that is being put forward by Honorable Amalwa is where we should be going in terms of interpreting the judgment. There's a 2013 judgment that is just as binding on the court or as persuasive to the court as it is binding on the chairman of the IEBC. So if there's somebody who's going to go over the 2013 decision, is only a similar bench sitting that will say, look, that 2013 decision was not correct, let's follow this now. But because that is what is the law, Chairman Chebukati knows he is bound by the 2013 Orbiter decision that was made, and that is why he's made this decision. So he's firmly grounded in law, and from there we cannot really fault him. The thing that we said of the IEBC prior to the election, and which is what is now catching up with them, they needed to communicate. most of these things that we're going through right now is because not enough communication came through. There was a lot of miscommunication, a lot of half-truths and whole lies being peddled. For example, how the Form 34Bs work. Those Form 34Bs were not physical copies. They were in the KIMS kit. So that when the Form 34As come, you start keying in the information on the Form 34B on the KIMS kit, and then now you produce it as you generate it later. Now, many people did not understand that particular fact. So they kept thinking, why didn't they have this, why didn't they have that? Now, if you are in a situation where we were told 11,000 polling stations did not have a very good network, and you are not able to generate one, or something happened and you failed to download it, and in Nairobi you have pressure, make sure we get those results, make sure. So what do? You go and improvise. There's some of these things that need to be audited and need to be corrected that were not necessarily of malice or criminality. It was just a failure of the system. Now, we are the ones who insisted we want an electronic system. We want an electronic transmission system. So without having any buffers, we find ourselves in a situation where... Which is where we are now. Which is where we are now. And in a situation where we are going into a repeat election, if some of those loopholes are not tied up, we have the potential of ending up where we are right now. So the IEBC not only need to take charge, they need to not just communicate, to over-communicate. Talk to Kenyans every single day. Tell us what you're doing. Even if you think we do not understand, tell us, let us not understand. But keep talking. Because when you keep quiet, come up with a decision and just see a Kenya Gazette. Yes. Then that's what you have.
As part of his response yesterday, both to Jubilee and NASA, he stated that he'll be, that's IBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati, he'll be having a weekly meeting with both sides. In addition, he'll also be having a weekly meeting with other stakeholders, church leaders, foreign envoys. Does that make sense for you? Is that a bit of what you're asking for? We need communication. We need communication. How much daily? If possible, because every day there's something developing. For example, when he was coming up with the project, with the team project team, I don't know the project. Yes, I don't know the correct sequence. That is something that we should have known. This is in the offing, and this is what we're thinking of. So initially, for example, you saw NASA saying, we want so and so and so and so and so and so out. And we want so and so and so and so and so and so too. And then we had some rumors of maybe this one will take over. Then before long, we see something gazetted. Yes. And we're all wondering, okay, so when did we move from here to here? That's what I'm talking about. And it's not just for the parties who are interested, who are running in this race. It's even for normal Kenyans. We need to understand how we are coming from point A to point B. And finally, I still have not seen anybody in the dock for things that were obviously wrong. So the Elections Act says any officer who commits an action or omits to do an action, that is part of what he's supposed to do in his duty. For example, those missing signatures, that is low-hanging fruit. Those guys should be in the dock. We should start seeing somebody taking responsibility for the mess we are in right now. Okay, I think I have seen reports of 1 or 2 individuals who are arrested on election day. But those ones are arrested on election. We are talking about those. It has subsequently come to light that something went wrong. We want to see an accountability process, yes. Because otherwise, what's the use removing the head, and yet the guy who did the malpractice is the one who's still the RO there. We are waiting for him to do it again. I'll have to stop you there, Joy. We're barely scratching the surface of this topic, but we need to take a short break. When we come back, of course, I'll carry on with my panelists in studio. In addition, we'll be crossing back to Nyeri County, the swearing in of the members of the County Assembly. 30 elected MCAs, 14 nominated MCAs. Those are the numbers that Martin Munene gave us. We'll be taking a look at what is happening there on the other side of this break. In addition, we also know that Nairobi NASA elected leaders have a meeting at a city hotel. We expect NASA co-principal Musalia Mudavadi, former Nairobi Governor Dr. Evans Kidero will be part of that meeting. In addition, we'll continue looking at IEBC's responses to NASA and the way forward on the other side of this break. You're watching Citizen Extra live on Citizen TV. But before we take a break, let me sample 1 or 2 of your SMSs. I already see them coming in hard and fast. This being a topic that Kenyans are following closely. Let me see here. Let me see if I can. Someone says technology will not change results. Let me see if I can get something here. Okay, someone here, they say Mwananchi is their name. Hi, I'm asking, last time I traveled to go and vote at my county, now I am back. For the election of presidential, will I have to go back again, or I can vote where I am now? Consider transport. I wish we had an IEBC official to help us answer that. Well, no. A current IEBC official to help us answer that. I know Lilian cannot speak on their behalf. Someone here, Mzee William Obumba from Kabondo Kasipul, is saying, Citizen, why not commence the date of the 60 days after release of the judgment? Why the rush without the benefit of the judgment? And last one here, Jambi Mwangi says, Chebukati seems very confident in spite of the pressure, and so I believe in the IEBC to handle the election. While a final one here from Ezra from Huruma, you say, morning, what I need to say is that let the political parties leave IEBC. I hope Senator Kangata and Honorable Amalu are listening to this. Leave the IEBC to do their work. Let them wait for the plan. Thank you. We take a break on that note. We'll be right back. You're watching Citizen Extra.